the Most Reverend Dr. Matthew Asan Kuka, the Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. My Lord Bishop, you're very much welcome. Your Grace, we celebrate your presence. And of course, joining our Chief Shepherd and our guest speaker is none other than the NCF NEC Chairman, Honorable Justice Mrs. R.I.B. Adebiyi. We shall remain standing as we take the national anthem. Shall we please be seated? You can take the second stanza in your mind. Sincere apology, I've just missed or omitted something very important, and I crave your indulgence that you please rise again. And this can be taken as an exercise, morning exercise. Let us rise to take the prayer for the earth. We cannot proceed unless we take this, please. And together, we can say this prayer as projected on the screen. 1, 2, go. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. Being with us each day, encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. Help us to rescue, O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you. We thank you, O Lord. Please be seated. In life, there is always a way out of every situation. And I will just sincerely beg that we all should go through this prayer again to help form our consciousness, for that is indeed a very, very rich prayer. Not only is it a prayer, it is asking God to guide our actions towards the preservation of Mother Earth. We have the DG already seated on the top table. Dr. Onoja, please put your hands together for him. I'd like to specially appreciate members of the National Executive Council of NCF. Please, a round of applause for them. As the event unfolds, we shall mention them one after the other. We also welcome very specially the students who have come to represent not only themselves, but their respective institutions here. It is quite important to acknowledge your presence, for we believe that the take-home from today's lecture will be well propagated within your scope of operations within the four walls and even beyond of your institutions of learning. Please, let's put our hands together for them. We also acknowledge our first point of reach out to the outside world, that is, those whom we expect to help to propagate whatever message that stems from this podium today. And I'm particular about members of the press, the media and the pressmen here present. Please put your hands together for them. As the event unfolds, more recognitions to come. Before I proceed, permit me to do this very special recognition. For it is the skeletal system of the human body that helps the flesh and gives it mobility. And the role for which this very distinguished persons through our organization plays in all that NCF does cannot be overemphasized. I'm talking about a woman who is already seated on the top table, and she is the MD. Okay, she's a representative of Chevron. Please welcome with me Mrs. Ebisan Akinsanya. Can you see Chevron in that smile? Hello? We appreciate all you do for us through NCF. Thank you so very much. We now go into the business of, is it the morning? Still the morning. Next is the welcome address by none other than the Honorable Justice Mrs. R.I.B. Adebi, NCF NEC Chairman.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'll go through the protocol list. First of all, before I do that, I'd like to apologize for our starting slightly late. Please bear with us. We'll try and make up the time as we go along. Our governor, who had promised he was sending a rep, I'll acknowledge him when he arrives. Your Excellencies, our religious leaders, particularly our guest speaker, the Most Reverend Dr. Matthew Hassan Kuka, Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, our special guest of honor, who we are so happy to welcome and to have with us, the Most Reverend Dr. Alfred Adewale Martins, Archbishop of the Metropolitan See of the Catholic Diocese, Archdiocese of Lagos. Can we give him a warm welcome, please? Thank you so much, sir. We are highly honored to have you. And our guest speaker, all the way from Sokoto, we thank you, sir. Those of us who are familiar, and most of us are familiar with our guest speaker, is very, very well sought after, very, very, very busy. And for making time out to be here with us today, please let's give him another warm welcome. Thank you very much indeed, sir. We are highly honored to have you. Our sponsors, Chevron Nigeria Limited, ably represented by our own Mrs. Ebisan Akinsanya. Thank you very much. Chevron have been sponsoring this lecture series since it commenced 24 years ago. So thank you very much, Chevron. And not just the lecture, they sponsor a lot of the activities in the Lekki Conservation Center. Members of National Executive Council of the NCF, our trustees who are not here, but one of our trustees is very ably represented by his mother. One of our trustees is Senator Ede Dafinone, and I believe his mother is here. Can we please stand up to be recognized, ma? We are very happy to have you, and we welcome you warmly for being here. Thank you, ma. Thank you. Senator Dafinone used to be the chairman of the National Executive Council. I took over from him last year. Distinguished members of the National Executive Council, we have them sitting in front, and I'll just recognize, there are not too many of us, so I'll recognize those that are present. Senator Odusi, please can you stand up to be recognized? It's one of the NEC members. Architect Ibare Akison, please stand up to be recognized. You're welcome. Thank you. Mr. Desmond Majekodumi, who a lot of people recognize in conservation, you're welcome. Our own Dame, Marie Fatai Williams, who is also the chairman of the Business Development Committee, who put this together. And while I'm introducing her, I'll introduce her better half, our own Egbon, Dr. Fatai Williams, who's seated over there. Thank you for your support always. Our own Admiral Okoja, who is seated there. You're welcome, sir. He's a member of NEC. And our honorary treasurer, who's also a member of NEC, Mr. Femi Agbaje. You're welcome. So those are the members of NEC who are present. We have been introduced our Director General and members of management, members of the family of late Papa Chief S.L. Edu, of which I am a part. Please stand up to be recognized. You are all welcome, please. Members of the family of Papa Chief S.L. Edu. Thank you very much for being here. Members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and I would like to personally welcome my dear husband, Mr. Adebi, Architect Adebi. You are welcome as well. Happy New Year to all of us, and I wish us all a peaceful, prosperous, and environmentally friendly 2026. In other words, no disaster will overcome us. There will not be floods, there will not be earthquake, there will not, what are the other disasters that we've been having? Tsunamis and so on. So we pray that this year will be a year where we will do our part, and in return, nature will also cooperate with us. On behalf of the President of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, Chief Dr. Isioma Asiodu, CFR-CON, the trustees and members of the NEC, the Director General and Management, I warmly welcome us all to the 24th Chief S.L. Edu Memorial Lecture. This is one of the flagship events of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation. I would like to specially welcome again our special guest of honor and our guest speaker. Permit me also to welcome distinguished guests, our consistent and faithful sponsors, Chevron Nigeria Limited, our loyal supporters, our religious leaders, our first-time attendees, members of the conservation family, members of the family of Papa Chief S.L. Edu, friends of the earth, students of tertiary institutions and other schools, members of the press, and once again, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. This year, we are grateful that you have made time to be part of this lecture. We are excited and expectant to learn from and be inspired by our distinguished speaker, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka, a prolific and highly sought after voice, whom we are privileged to host, speaking on the topic, to have and to hold, faith and care of the environment. This is indeed an important and timely theme, with increasing threats to nature, deforestation, pollution, climate change, and other unsustainable human activities. The foundation of our very existence is under pressure. Considering that many of us are people of faith, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, and adherents of traditional religions, some even practicing more than one at a time. This lecture serves as a vital reminder that conservation is not solely the responsibility of governments or organizations like NCF. It is a shared duty. It calls for collective action from each of us to adopt practices that protect and preserve our natural environment and heritage for present and future generations. A responsibility for which we are accountable to the Almighty, from whom we receive the gift of the earth. Before we proceed, permit me to give a brief glimpse into the life of the man in whose memory this lecture is held, late Chief Shafi Lawal Edu, S.L. Edu, fondly called Sli, fondly called Papa Edu. Chief S.L. Edu was born on the 7th of January 1911 in Ekpe, Lagos State. His life story is that of a royal prince who rose from humble beginnings to greatness through hard work, discipline, ambition, intelligence, and deep faith in God. He received sound Islamic and Western education at Government Primary School Ekpe, Quranic School, and later the Ekpe Government School. He entered the private sector early, beginning with Holland West Africa Line in 1930, and by 1945, he had established his own business interests, spanning shipping, transport, contracting, aviation representation, and insurance, and founded African Alliance Insurance Company in 1960. Chief Edu's business empire was vast and diverse. He was widely recognized as a business mogul, both locally and internationally. In commerce, he was a towering figure. Between the 1950s and 70s, he dominated the chambers of commerce sector. He served as president of the National Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture from 1963 to 68. He was life patron of the Nigeria-British Chamber and facilitated the Nigeria-Netherlands Chamber, and he chaired several companies, including Blackwood Dodge, Glaxo, and HP Nigeria. Yet his impact extended to public service. He served twice as Commissioner for Health and Social Services in the Western region in 1962 and Lagos State in 1967. He was indeed a notable philanthropist supporting many institutions, and he received many honors, including MFR in 1965, Officer of the Order of Orange Nassau, Netherlands in 1974, and CON in 2000, as well as an honorary D.Lit from Lagos State University. He was the Mogaji Ngeri of Ekpe and achieved several firsts, including first Nigerian president of the Rotary Club of Lagos. Despite his accomplishments, he remained deeply committed to conservation. With like-minded conservationists, he founded the Nigerian Conservation Foundation in 1980, which was registered in 1982. He is rightly regarded as the father of conservation in Nigeria. His faith was central to his conservation philosophy. As noted by one of his friends, His Royal Highness Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, Chief Edu believed deeply that, and I quote, "the natural environment is governed by the laws of God," end of quote. He passed away peacefully on the 8th of January 2002 and was laid to rest in his beloved Ekpe. As one of his children, the 9th out of 10, I am deeply proud of this heritage. I am equally privileged to serve as chairman of the National Executive Council of NCF, the foremost environmental NGO in Nigeria. The foundation operates as a trust under Part C of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, with Chief Dr. Isioma Philip Asiodu, CFR CON, as president. Our trustees include distinguished professionals of integrity, and our 22-member National Executive Council guides operations, while day-to-day management is led by our Director General, Dr. Joseph Onoja. As we proceed, I encourage us all to listen attentively, participate actively, and live with renewed resolve to play our part in environmental conservation. Before I conclude, I would like to once again thank our sponsors for their consistent support of this lecture and the scholarship programs. I also thank the Business Development Committee, led by Dame Marie Fatai Williams, and the Scholarship Evaluation Panel, who sat to identify the recipients of the scholarships today, our Director General, management and staff, particularly those working in our field sites across Nigeria. Once again, I warmly welcome us all and wish us all a meaningful and impactful session. Thank you very much for listening.
We can do another beautiful applaud. Thank you so very much, ma'am. Next on the program is to listen attentively to the goodwill message. And this is coming from none other than our special guest of honor, His Grace, the Most Reverend Dr. Alfred Adewale Martins, the Catholic Archbishop and Metropolitan See of Lagos. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our Baba with a resounding applaud.
Please permit me to rest on the protocols that have just been established, but to acknowledge our guest speaker and the chair of the Executive Council of National Conservation Foundation, the family of Chief S.L. Edu, and all of you distinguished guests, brothers and sisters. I begin by saying thank you to the Nigerian Conservation Foundation and the family of Edu for your kind invitation to give a goodwill message at this 24th Chief S.L. Edu Memorial Lecture. This is an important platform that continues to facilitate the much-needed conversation on environmental stewardship, sustainability, and our shared responsibility to care for our common home, the earth. The theme of this year's lecture, to have and to hold, faith and care of the environment, resonates very deeply with our mission as a people of faith, as church, the Catholic Church. Faith calls us not to dominate and abuse creation recklessly, but to hold it in trust, with gratitude, with reverence, and with restraint. Authentic faith compels us to protect life in all its forms and to ensure that future generations inherit a world that is livable, just, and hopeful. It is in furtherance of the Church's teaching on the environment that Pope Leo XIV commissioned the Laudato Si Garden at Castel Gandolfo in Italy last year, and has in fact declared this year, 2026, the year of St. Francis of Assisi, one who is known as the Church's foremost ecologist, in order to commemorate his 800th anniversary. May this year marks the 11th year of the monumental encyclical Laudato Si, given to us by our late Holy Father, Pope Francis. In that document, he calls the attention of humanity to the need for care of the environment, an integral ecology, as well as concern about climate change as it affects the earth, our common home. He calls everyone to what he calls ecological conversion, an acceptance of our sin against the environment. This is a time for all of us to be sorry for our cruelty to creation through the plundering and exploitation of her riches and gifts, by our actions and inactions, by our style, our ways of consumption, our habits of consumption and lifestyle that leads to loss of biodiversity, pollution, climate change, disease, and poverty, making the earth like one huge dump site, almost an existential threat being experienced in the climate calamities that the world is facing today. Our chair has prayed that we will not have any of those calamities anymore. But obviously, we need a conversion in our ways of life in order to ensure that our prayers rise to the right place. The encyclical of Pope Francis reminds us that care for the earth is not an optional concern. It is a moral, spiritual, and social imperative, one that is intricately connected to respect for the dignity of the human person, the protection of the poor, and the pursuit of the common good. The Catholic Church in Nigeria and the Archdiocese of Lagos in particular are deeply committed to realizing this profound call to ecological conversion. Please permit me to share with you how we in the Archdiocese of Lagos have tried to translate the principles of Laudato Si into concrete action. Through pastoral initiatives, sensitization at the parish level, in Catholic schools, and associations of lay faithful, we continue to promote environmental awareness and stewardship as an expression of faith in action. Our emphasis on integral ecology recognizes that environmental degradation and social injustice are interconnected realities, and that the cry of the earth, the cry of the poor, must be heard together and treated together. In our effort to advance the Laudato Si teaching, in 2019, the Archdiocese of Lagos set up an umbrella body for youths committed to the environment cause. It is tagged NICEN, Network of Young Catholic Carers for the Environment. In 2020, the Archdiocese Working Group on the Environment and NICEN, in happy collaboration with the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, hosted a webinar titled Integral Ecology, Role of Young People and Faith-Based Organizations in the Environmental Challenge. In 2022, we hosted a conference titled Listening and Journeying Together, Energy Crisis and Sustainable Lifestyle Changes for Church and State. We recommended the need for everyone to have an energy mix by going solar. We encourage ecological conversion that calls for a change in lifestyle so that people can move away from environmental exploitation to responsible consumption, waste reduction, tree planting initiatives, and so on and so forth. We continue to engage families, youth, and communities, helping to nurture a culture of stewardship that begins in the home and extends to society at large. These efforts affirm our belief that faith communities have a vital role to play in shaping values, behaviors, public conscience, and environmental responsibility. I have taken the pains to go through all of this for no other reason than to say that faith communities can do and must do something in order to enhance the life and the work of great men and women of our society who have made a lot of sacrifice so that we can be where we are today in the conversation around the environment. Let me use this opportunity finally to commend the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, the Edu family, and all partners for sustaining this memorial lecture as a beacon of thought leadership and advocacy. May this gathering inspire renewed commitment, deeper collaboration, and courageous action towards environmental sustainability, grounded in faith, justice, and love for humanity. Happily, I was reliably informed that the NCF has adopted the Universal Prayer of the Earth, a prayer that the late Pope Francis gave to us. I say this is highly commendable and again shows that faith groups, faith bodies, communities can do something which will help to attain the goals that we desire for our environment. May God bless our efforts. May He guide our stewardship. May He grant us the wisdom to care faithfully for the earth, our common home. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
That applaud is not enough. Thank you so very much, Your Grace. If you look through the order of event, what is next is a documentary, but time will not permit that we go through that route. But just like I said before, I'd like to reiterate quite briefly that there are about 6 to 9 different spots within the hall where you can access drinkable water. This arrangement is put in place so as to discourage the use of plastic bottle. NCF champions this cause, and we live it and we practice it. So please, in case you feel thirsty, just quietly take a walk to any of the spots where you can access water. Then the dispenser, upon your command, will respond duly. Also, you can access the restroom at the back of the hall for your convenience. The next item is the citation of our guest speaker. To do the citation, permit me to invite to the podium the DG NCF, Dr. Joseph Onoja, to please do us the honors of taking us through the citation.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when I was coming up to read the citation, I told myself that we were going to read everything about the citation to be longer than the lecture itself. So we've done ourselves a very the order to shorten just an introduction of our speaker this morning. The Most Reverend Dr. Matthew Hassan Koka, CON, is the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, Nigeria. He holds a degree in Divinity, Peace Studies, Public Policy, and a doctorate from the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London, and is also an alumnus of the Oxford and Harvard universities. A respected public intellectual, he has served on key national initiatives, including the Human Rights Violation Investigation Commission, the Electoral Reforms Commission, and the National Political Reform Conference, and facilitated the peace negotiations between the Shell and the Ogoni people. He also served as a pro-chancellor of the Nasarawa State University, and currently chairs the governing council of the Federal University of Applied Sciences, Kachia, and is the founder of the Koka Center, a public policy think tank in Abuja. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished, I present to you the Most Reverend Dr. Matthew Hassan Koka. Please, a round of applause for him.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. It's a... Please sit down. Please sit down. Please. Thank you. I'll ask only one person to stand up. Mrs. Dafinone. Mrs. Dafinone, please stand up. Now, I am seeing you for... No, stay there. I'm seeing you for the first time in real life. And this girl that is standing, she led her family to the Guinness Book of Records with a record of 6 accountants, 4 boys and 2 girls. I say 4 boys deliberately, because the first boy, husband. It's not a small achievement. Please give her a round of applause. Thank you, ma. Please sit down. Thank you. So I've met 2 or 3 Daffinones. I don't know them, but every time they mention Daffinone, I say, you must be an accountant, and they say yes. I came with 2 of my friends, Father Patrick Alumukum. Please stand up. Patrick is a priest of the Archdiocese of Abuja. He is the president of the Catholic Television in Abuja, and he has come to accompany me. And then Dakpo is, where is Dakpo? Dakpo is a friend of mine. He's somewhere in the audience. Father Patrick is a TV man, and so I will start off with something that has to do with environment, but also concerns the TV people. As you know, then Americans had a president, the 41st president of the United States of America. So you may know his name. Why is this? Some of you may know his name, but in 1992, a chief man was going to visit his family in the United States of America, and he went to the American embassy for a visa with all the documents complete. And the visa officer asked him, so why are you going to the United States of America? He said, well, I'm going to see my children who are living in America. He said, well, so what do you do? Where do you live? He said, I live in Makurdi. So what do you do for a living? He said, I hunt for bushmeat. And the visa officer looked at him and said, we cannot give you a visa to go to America because our president is George Bush. When I had, I'm sure the organizers know that I was given a slightly different topic, but I deliberately chose a topic titled To Have and to Hold. These are words that are used during the ceremonies of marriage when 2 people come together and exchange their vows. And I use that as a metaphor, to say that our responsibility to the earth is a responsibility that is based on the trust that God gave to us. And of course, this means fidelity, custody, restraint, care, and an agreement not to exhaust, not to dominate, abandon, not to abandon nature, but to nurture it, protect, and sustain it. It is therefore an attempt to frame our relationship with the earth in terms of both a profoundly theological and an urgently political dimension. With the task of creation done, God said in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, let us make man in the image and likeness of ourselves. Let them rule over the fish and the sea, over the birds and the air, the cattle, over the animals, and over all the creeping things. God blessed them, and he said to them, multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish and the sea, and the birds of the sky, over every living creature that moves on the ground. To subdue and rule the earth and its creatures is not a call by God for us human beings to become conquerors. It is rather a call to human beings to bring creation to order, to align the will of God with the purpose of creation. It is a call for humanity to nurture and ensure that creation fulfills that for which God intended it. To this extent, by being called to increase and multiply, God is calling on human beings to a special union in a sense of being co-creators. To enable humanity to perform this responsibility, they were created by God in his image and likeness, as we find in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And as such, the earth, like a spouse, was not given to us to plunder, to abuse with arrogance. Like a union, this relationship is a covenant for mutual nourishment and growth. Stewardship is therefore rooted in service, not in sovereignty. Ownership is not dominion or selfish possession. Humanity is not granted dominion as a license for destruction, but was granted a stewardship that is rooted in accountability. Again, in the book of Genesis chapter 2, verse 15, God said, the Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to till and to keep it. Some have said that it's a pity that Adam and Eve were not Chinese, because had they been Chinese, they would have eaten the snake and not the fruit. Yet today, we live in a world where use has devoured preservation, and where extraction has been severed from ethics. From open pit mining scars that outlive generations, forests fuel faster than they can regenerate, to rivers poisoned in the name of profit, the earth is treated not as a sacred trust, but as a disposable commodity. And this is not development. It is moral failure disguised as progress. In Laudato Si, on the care of the environment, what the Holy Father called the care of our common home, Pope Francis warned us by saying, and I quote, "We have come to see ourselves as her Lord and Master, entitled to plunder her at will. The violence present in our hearts, wounded by sin, is also reflected in the symptoms of sickness evident in the soil, in the water, in the air that forms life. This is why the earth herself, burdened and laid waste, is among the most abandoned, maltreated of our poor. She groans in travail, as we are told by St. Paul in Romans chapter 8, verse 22. We have forgotten that we ourselves are dust, and we shall finally return to dust, as we are told in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. In Africa today and the rest of the world, we relate with the earth and creation from the point of view of domination, subjugation, and oppression. We have come to believe that the earth and all therein was meant to serve us, to feed us, and to feed our insatiable appetite. Thus, we have lost a culture and a sense of care or restitution. We do not reclaim used lands. We do not nurture rivers or the soil. We have no concern about animals and other creatures that are not like us. Our dominion is entirely defined by utility to us. Thus, in relation with other creatures outside us, we treat everything only by how it can serve us, no matter the cost to their welfare. And because of who we are as Africans, we do not believe that animals have rights. Thus, in Nigeria, we believe that animals and other creatures are meant to satisfy us. Almost all animals are meat for us. For example, Nigerians have reacted with derision at the thought that they have any obligation to preserve certain animals or even trees. We refer to all animals outside our home as bushmeat, meant for our consumption. Its prohibitive cost is a testimony to this. We do not believe that we have an obligation to feed animals, even those that are in our homes. Thus, our goats, our dogs, our pigs, and other domestic animals are only released to go out and look for food. Their food is in the dung heap, the grass, human feces, or the pile of waste and garbage outside our homes. We hardly know how to care for them when they are sick. We only deliberately fatten the cow, the goat, the ram, or even the dog, more for slaughter than out of a sense of care. Our dogs are fed by what we call, and this is what Pope Francis has referred to as a throwaway culture. Hence we say, in Nigeria, the patient dog eats the fattest bone. Even though we realize that times are hard and the masters are eating up the bones. Although all along our careless and selfish appetite, the culture of consumerism has produced what Pope Francis referred to as a throwaway culture. Thus, culture reduces both people and nature to instruments of economic gain, things that can be disposed of. What we witness today, particularly in resource-rich but institutionally fragile states, is a disrespect for creation and the triumph of capitalist greed unmoored from conscience. The battle of indigenous peoples all over the world in containing the poison in their environment and the threats of deforestation have taken their toll on communities who have lost not only their livelihoods, but often their own lives as well. Whether in the Amazon forest or the resource-endowed community. The story of our people in the Niger Delta and their oil, that story is fresh in our minds. It also accounts for a significant part of the volatility and violence that continues to keep the Nigerian ship of state largely unstable. Appointed by President Olusegun Obasanjo in 2005, I spent almost 7 years in and out of Ogoni land to secure some respite between the Ogoni people and Shell. Together with the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, we were able to secure the scientific response that has led to the remediation program that is currently going on in Ogoni land and other parts of the Niger Delta. If you want a detailed account of my trials, my travels, my hopes, but also my successes, the result is in a book I published last year titled Witness to Reconciliation, My Personal Journey Towards Reconciliation in Ogoni land. As a machine that fuels the wheels of capitalism, the resource war has taken the greatest toll on our environment and is responsible for most of the conflicts in Africa, Latin America, and the developing world. From the beginning of the colonial I don't know what to do with the mic. Is it better? All right, I hope it doesn't bounce here. From the beginning of the colonial exploitation of Africa and Asia through slavery into the Industrial Revolution, the manipulation and the exploitation of the environment has been tied to profit motives. Today, Trump's agenda of making America great again by outright modern-day banditry, clothed as peacemaking, fits that model and shows that such spirit of exploitation is far from dead. In 1652, the Boers invaded Zululand and settled in what is today South Africa. 10 years earlier, in 1662, King Charles II granted royal charter to the Company of Royal Adventurers in Africa. The name of the company itself was fitting. In 1901, the Royal African Society was formed. This would later set the pace for the process of the so-called discovery and the scramble for Africa, laying the foundation for the slave trade and setting in motion a machinery for the systematic despoliation, naked rape, and the exploitation of Africa. This series of brutalities have left their scars on our continent of Africa, and they account in large part for the violence and the volatility that our continent is still stuck in. The fruits of adventure into Africa set the pace for the exploitation as reports about incredible wealth of the continent began to emerge from all these travelers who came to Africa. For a better part of 500 years, the search for the mythical Prester John, an imaginary Christian king whose wealth was impossible to calculate, sent European explorers around the world, particularly in Africa. The works of people like Mungo Park, his travels into the interior of Africa, provided inspiration for the exploitation of Africa. Again today, African students are familiar with some of these stories through the works of scholars like Walter Rodney's epic book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Thomas Peckham's The Scramble for Africa, Alan Patton's Cry the Beloved Country, Patrick Bond's Looting the Economics of Exploitation, and most importantly and significant, Adam Horsfield's phenomenal work titled King Leopold's Ghost, a story of greed, terror, heroism in colonial Africa, up to Mandela's long walk to freedom. These documentations explain the systematic despoliation of the continent of Africa purely and simply for the extraction of resources. The scars have been left in many parts by the time that King Leopold finished with the Congo, so to say, and what is now most of that area. A total of almost 1 million people whose hands were decapitated on grounds of low production of what do you call it? They were mining rubber. But subsequently, African writers, mostly Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, Ayikwe Ama, T.M. Aluko, Monga Betty, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and a host of others have used literature to illustrate the impact of colonialism on Africa and the spirited attempt by Africans to defend their land. Although Africa now has flag independence, then as now, most of our countries do not have any serious control over our resources. The literature suggests very clearly that the discovery of these resources during the colonial period played a great part in the delineation of colonial boundaries that created new nations. Most of the conflict on the continent today is tied to the control of these resources, with African countries lacking the ability and the capacity to alter old colonial boundaries. If you come to Sokoto, where I live, it's very difficult for you to, because almost most people I know in Sokoto are married to women from Niger. And this is the reason why it is difficult for us to talk about controlling cross-border, restraining cross-border trade, or even attempting to control smuggling. Because the average person says, I'm talking to my brother across the boundary. Now, in many parts of the global south, resources are removed not to uplift common communities, but to enrich distant markets and concentrated elites. The land is left wounded, livelihoods destroyed, water resources contaminated, and social fabrics torn apart. These are not merely environmental crimes. They are sins against justice, sins against the poor, and sins against future generations. Where the earth is exploited without restraint, fragility follows, and fragility breeds conflict. Mining without restoration, extraction without consent, and profit without justice. These constitute the Molotov cocktail that produces the violence we have in Africa. And today, whether it's genocide against Christians by whatever name, whether it is the killings going on across, it's all centrally tied to the struggle for resources, especially as we are seeing the displacements of communities. It's a necessary precondition for this exploitation, along with the cooperation and collaboration of the local elite. So most of us in Africa have created a situation in which our lack of understanding of the nature, the sources, and the direction of these conflicts have led us into thinking that we're asking ourselves the question, why is Africa constantly in conflict? But what the oppressor will never do is to take off his weight from your shoulder. So environmental destruction does not occur in isolation. It erodes trust, legitimacy, and social cohesion among people. When communities watch their lands taken, their waters polluted, their future mortgaged without consent or compensation, grievances accumulate and they trigger violence. These grievances are often misnamed farmer clashes, ethnic conflict, cattle rustling, religious violence, communal tension, but at the core lies a deep wound known as ecological injustice. A state that cannot protect its land cannot protect its people. When ecological funds are diverted, when environmental impact is weakened, or the political state loses its moral authority. When state laws and rules lose their meaning and resources, citizens disengage, and survival replaces solidarity. When we have cases of diffusion of cycles of violence, one against, it leads to what we call a war of all against all. Many of you are familiar with, and I heard some of this when I was working in the Niger Delta. It's become anecdotal, but it's actually the case because it talks to the issue of, does the oppressor have the right to become a moral guide? And so, for example, the young people in the Niger Delta, with my conversations, as I said, it has become anecdotal. They said the government, one of the accusations that Shell and other companies had against the Ogoni people, that they are destroying pipelines. The Nigerian government had that accusation, and it was clear. You could see that they destroyed pipelines. Oil was flowing in different directions. But in confronting these young people, they said, we are not destroyed. This vandalization of pipeline, this is Abuja language. We are not vandalizing the pipelines. When we ask for school, you say it's in the pipeline. We ask for health, hospital, you say it's in the pipeline. We ask for housing, you say it's in the pipeline. We ask for road, you say it's in the pipeline. So we are just opening the pipeline to find out the promises you've made to us, where are they? So I say this because, then as now, the rapist is turning around to preach moral purity. And I think we Africans have serious difficulties understanding the web of this conflict in which we are both victims but perceived as perpetrators in the sense that white people can't understand how Africans can't look after themselves. Well, take your hands off our business and we'll figure out how to deal with our own problems. This is where religion and religious leaders step in. This is where the devil must be called by his proper name. Moral clarity becomes a substitute for subterfuge and dubious synonyms. The need to call out a verdict becomes urgent. Religious leaders, therefore, are not spectators in the environmental crisis. Our business is not being called upon to pray. All right? Therefore, we cannot be spectators. We are custodians of moral clarity. The mission is to interpret the mind of God and compel the state to live according to the laws of God. A journalist, I was on a radio program last week, and the journalist said to me, Bishop, the title of the program was very interesting. It was The Pulpit and Politics. And he says to me, Bishop, what is the problem? What role should religion play in politics? Why are religious leaders? He listed all the sins that we religious leaders have preached. I said, Oga, what are you talking about? If you people who come to church and come to the mosque, we do our best to preach to you. When you leave the church and you leave the mosque and you go outside, we are no longer in control of your responsibility or irresponsibility. All we have is a moral voice. But if you do not listen, Napoleon said, with all his weaknesses, religion is what stops the poor from killing the rich. But we must be sure that religion does not become a sedative to let citizens feel that everything is going to be okay because God is in control. No, God is in control, but God's judgment is not in suspended animation. Therefore, we have a duty. Our task is to not only to preach conservation, and I'm happy the Archbishop of Lagos has demonstrated very clearly, we are not only preaching conservation. Okay, this is seen as a Catholic bishop, and for me, the significance must not be lost on us. That we are gathered here. I'm standing here as a bishop of the Catholic Church, speaking on behalf of a foundation set up by a Muslim. There is a way religion needs to conduct itself. We don't define religion by the garb that religion wears. And this is a point that all of us must make. There is a way of being Muslim that doesn't make religion harmful. And I say this because of where I've come from and how people see religion as a weapon. And this is why the crisis and the conflict we have in Nigeria today are mistakenly tied to religion. But that's because this is the face that people have seen. And for me, like I said, metaphorically, the significance is not lost. We've listened to the life of this man. He went to the kind of school that everybody who is a Muslim went through. How did he turn out this way? That he's created a platform now that has no religion. Everybody who loves the environment will come. So I think this kind of moral clarity is important because very often religion becomes a garment of dishonor. And in the process, it is the faith, it's the practitioners that are making the religion difficult for people to accept and believe in. So our task is not only to preach conservation, but to name the exploitation that characterizes it, because every oppression is a violation of divine trust. Faith demands restraint, not consumption, equity in distribution, and accountability in governance. It insists that progress without justice is regression. Blind accumulation that produces hunger is morally reprehensible. Our business is not to pray for the hungry. It is to dismantle the structures that produce injustice, inequality, and unfairness. You know, when people talk to me, they say, Bishop, you are preaching politics. You cannot be a priest. You cannot be a priest, especially of the Catholic Church, and not be sufficiently angry about how does it happen that a country with so much capacity and endowment, we are treating one another as if others are children of a lesser God. It is unacceptable, and we don't have to wait for God's judgment in heaven, because God's judgment starts from here, and it starts from our ability to name and call the devil by his name. So to have and to hold means that we must resist the temptation to consume today what belongs to tomorrow. Because this structural injustice produces structural violence in the sense that we can see those who are accumulating resources well beyond their generation. Many Nigerians are going to be, in the next 20 years, so thoroughly embarrassed. Some people have worked hard to send their children abroad. Others have stolen enough money to send their children abroad. But guess what? These children are not interested in Nigeria again. Because many people who have sent their children abroad have told them, this dysfunctional country, I don't want you, cannot stay here. Fine. We are not even as clever as the Asians, who are sending their children to America and Europe to do the kind of thing that they need to do, which is what has produced people like Rishi Sunak. We are not even sending our children with the hope that they will come back either to take over from us or to help us reconstruct. So we are investing massive resources only to produce laborers and workers for other countries. And we are living comfortably thinking that we are building a great country. Because what the next generation is going to inherit, what they will do with this country depends on the moral foundation that we. So the earth is patient. Moral limits must be imposed where markets refuse to do so. Because we hear capitalism, unrestrained capitalism, talking about market forces. In a dysfunctional country like Nigeria, we don't have the forces, we don't even have the market. So to pretend that we are applying the laws of capitalism is totally irresponsible because it's not possible. When we talk about Western liberal democracy, the structure is not there. It's not because we don't have good building. We have good building material. You can go and buy the best building material. You go and start building on sand, nothing is going to happen. You know, there's a story about some Arabs. They came to London for the first time, full of money. And because they live in the desert, no water. They turned the tap on in the hotel and they saw water. They say, we have seen the white man's secret. See? So when they were going back, they went and bought all these beautiful forces made of gold, counted them for the entire communities. They carried them excess luggage to their country. And they now started giving out, we call them taps, started giving them out to all the families. Say, just tie it to the wall, because that is how we saw it in London. Tie it to the wall, tie it to the wall. Once we have found the white man's secret. Once you turn like this, water will come. So Nigerians are thinking that somehow the problem is the quality of the building material. No, the quality is with the foundation on which the material is being born. So that is why democracy is not working, it's not delivering, not because we are bad people, we are exceptionally brilliant people. But the ground, the basis for planting democracy, the economic, the elite, because democracy is driven not by what politicians do, but the heat generated by the elite, whose calculation is about how to protect their interests. But right now in Nigeria, all we have is a collusion in exploitation. So I make the point that the earth is patient, but it is not, its patience is not infinite. So that is why when Her Lordship talks about praying, that earthquake will not come. Earthquake will not come. But we know floods will come in Lagos. Because floods are part and parcel of living in Lagos. I lived here for 10 years. The question to ask is, how does it happen? We know this is coming, but every year the cycle continues. People are walking inside water up to their waist. But the worst flood is not even the one that nature is producing. It is the flood that is unleashed by a political elite whose consumption pattern diminishes the rest of us. That one will not be answered by prayer. To govern to protect ecosystems is to protect livelihoods. To govern resources justly is to prevent conflict. Creation may seem silent. Creation may seem patient. Creation may seem even dumb, even deaf and dumb. However, creation is not deaf. Creation is not blind. Creation has a rage. Creation can become vengeful in response to our provocation. We call that vengeful reaction earthquake. We call it flood. The floods are not an accident. They are not an accident. But there are people who live where we are living now. They lived through those times. So we must learn to take responsibility and bear in mind that creation is a hard tax collector. We provoke creation when we replace love and care with selfishness, and judgment day will come. We must therefore pause and think. Therefore, we must, among other things, deal with the issues of what is called integral ecology. And as you know, Pope Francis appointed me a member of the Pontifical Council for Integral Human Development. That's how it is called in the Vatican. But this is a combination. The decision was taken by Pope Francis to bring together the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, another council called COONUM, which is one heart. It was about doing great things around the world, the Pontifical Council on the Environment, and then the one on the care of the sick. And it became the Pontifical Council for Integral Human Development. That council, what we are talking about now, comes under that council. So the notion of integral human development is to say that ecology, everything is interconnected, and that human, economic, cultural, and ecological systems form a complex, interdependent whole. It insists that environment, society, economy, culture, ethics, and politics are all tied together and they are not inseparable. It foregrounds justice as integral to ecological solution, recognizing that environmental harm, the environment harms disproportionately, and that this affects the vulnerable. Integral ecology is to build bridges that are scientific, social, ethical, and spiritual. Like St. Paul says, when one part of the body is hot, the body is off. 1 Corinthians 12, verse 26. I want to find web ending. Maybe I said, and I'll leave up to you. But let me see what we're round up. The earth is right. How do we respond to the crowd? First, we must frame a concrete response. What has become the crowd death? This calls protection of a common home, addressing the climate crisis, biodiversity loss, ecological degradation, access to clean water, and environmental justice for all creation. Now, it was very interesting that the matter of saying what here, and they really said about how these things are going to be done. But I want to talk about one day, and the whole world has changed. What changed by individuals doing little things. By individuals doing little things. When I was in 1982, it was very interesting. When Musa became Mr. President, because before our very eyes, in Abuja, it was big 82, 83, 84, and beyond. If you go to anybody in Abuja, I don't see fast. Musa will use a horse, just go around. And the whole of Abuja, people go to the land, and they like, nobody was allowed to be a work. And the vision for Abuja first suffered the result of people who were completely different. So the crowd of the earth is upon us. We have to respond to the crowd of the poor, and we need to respond to the crowd of the poor, because it's one of the problems that our countries, which have been blessed so much by God, by finding ourselves in this situation. The church cannot continue with moral isolation. There is need to be partners in advocacy that find allies in civil society, the judiciary, the media, so that we can begin to address the means of bringing this shame to public life. If we cannot win in the courts, we can at least win in the court of public opinion, or the court of divine justice. We should move beyond welfare-based responses towards structural justice, land security, and livelihood restoration. We also have to deal with the issues of the needed change in our livelihood and our lifestyles. The comedian Ali Baba, I was on a flight with him, and he said that here and when Fashola was governor, he said both of them sat down together. They spent some time just trying to calculate how much do people in Lagos spend every week in their social life, whether it's actually printing cards, and the money they calculated came to billions. 2 months ago, I had a young man who works in a nightclub, and he came to see me. He said he was in trouble. I said, what's the problem? He sat down. He said, somebody came to a nightclub. The guy, it's true story, crossed my heart. He said the guy drank. He and his friends, they spent 3.5 million. Mike, they spent what? 3.5 million. And then the guy said that his phone was not working, and because he's a customer, they let him go. But he was the one in charge. 1 to 2 days later, they don't see the money. So they now held his neck and was on the verge of losing his job. So he came to me to explain this to him. I said 3.5 million. Then he now looked at me. He was like, "Are you a poor old man? You don't understand?" He said to me, 3.5 million. That is nothing. On the night, you are not people spend 80, 20 million naira. Yes, I see him at the pocket. Nothing. Now this is a country where people are dying. This is a country. I ask people, you know, Nigerians, something is wrong, and it's not in our stars. In Ghana here, in Niger, in Togo, in Cameroon, have you ever heard that 10 people died, and then another 15 people died, and the 20 people died, all in 1 week? This is Nigeria. 100 people died, 50 people died. Nothing. The brand was people still in the club. They say, bring one SO, whatever they call it. We still continue to bring the brand. Nothing. How do we become morally sedated? Because these things are not acceptable in other parts of Africa, not be talking about other parts of the world. See what is happening today in Minneapolis. Over what? Now one person they kill, they say carry gun self. Now in Nigeria, somebody can go to your house, slaughter people, slaughter women, and go. Then they say, Bishop Buka, why are you not talking now? Why are you not talking? Where and how did moral revulsion go to? We can be angry about the stole election. We can be angry about lack of fuel. There was a report in this country that even France itself, Nigeria was the highest country in the consumption of champagne. Somebody told me, I gave a talk somewhere, I think it was at the Hilton, and I said, I saw the picture of one young man, this musician. Saw a picture of one man. One of these young musicians was lying down on the bed with a bottle of champagne, and they put it there that it was 350,000 naira. I said, is this madness? My friend Donald Duke was in the hall. So when we finished, everybody was crying. Donald Duke came to me and said, Bishop, boy, you, who they drink 350,000 naira champagne? We don't pass that one now. 350,000 naira, that is, and yet we are still fighting over paying workers 70,000 naira. Elite irresponsibility in Nigeria is profound, and we are all complicit, because a country that can live they hope that people will do right. Today, these lands, innocent people's lands, are being taken in collusion between governors and greedy traditional rulers. And so, to square the cycle, we need to adopt a culture of ecological spirituality, the like of which we saw in the prayer that we have just said. For example, on the 9th of November 2019, there was a synod on the Amazon with Pope Francis. Pope Francis did a lot of things that's why it was so controversial. But what Pope Francis tried to do was to strip Jesus Christ of any cultural claims and to let the man in Nazareth walk among the world, among peoples of the world. And he allowed, during the synod of the Amazon, he allowed the people from the Andes to come with what they call Pachamama, which is an earth goddess among them. And because those of you who have been to Rome, there is, see, Via Transportina, that long stretch, facing the Vatican, there is a church there. It's called Santa Maria on the Transportina. That's where they unveiled this. And for people accuse Pope Francis of idolatry. How can he allow? Now, in my paper, I try to explain the fact that there are things we can adopt here. The Igbos are big on organizing New Yam Festival. It is conceivable that even within that context of spirituality, we can say, okay, the yam came from somewhere now. So while we are eating the yam, can we have a little bit of attention or use that opportunity to talk about the need for preservation of the land? In other words, it is possible for us in our communities, made of Christians and Muslims, when the rains come, for us to even have a collective prayer, whether it's a collective prayer, acknowledging and thanking God for the rains before we go out to plant. In the course of those conversations by farmers and communities, we can begin to have ourselves busy with the issues of the environment. We are also need for us to focus closely on the issues of the common good of all of us. Now, I mentioned the paper. When Pompeo took his name, Pompeo the 14th, I jumped in excitement and I discovered my excitement was well founded. I was excited because my mind went back. My mind went back to 1891 when one of my favorite encyclicals called Yar'Adua of New Things. That is the encyclical when the late Yar'Adua was the longest serving chancellor of China. When Hitler came, he fled and ended up in a convent where he was hiding and he stumbled on this document. He read it and was like, what is this? Everything we need to know about governance is captured here. And then subsequently in 1891, Pompeo issued this encyclical called Yar'Adua of New Things. So when Pompeo when he decided to take this name, I said, let's hope we'll connect the dots. Because now we have a clear sense of urgency about what is the world supposed to be like. And in that document, Pope Leo XIII said very clearly, he said, and I quote, because it was at the time capitalism was rearing its head, workers were being subjected to the worst form of humiliation and indignity. And the Pope said, and I quote, it is shameful and inhuman to use men as things of gain. The oppressed workers above all ought to be liberated from the savagery of greedy men who in ordinary use human beings as things of gain. This is why, when, as I said, when this cardinal called Robert Prevost chose this name on May 8, 2025, I said we are on a good course. Because pushing back, because the church has always responded to the dynamics of society. It has the capacity. The Vatican has what you call Vatican Academy of Letters. It is an assembly of people with knowledge, not people of faith. I remember we went there for a conference in Rome, bishops of Africa, and we were addressed by a gentleman who stood before all the bishops and said, I am an atheist. But the Vatican invited him to speak to him because the subject, he was an expert in that subject. So the church has always made this prediction. For example, in 1963, Pope John the 13th, said that in his encyclical and peace on earth, he laid down the condition. Every person has the right to life, body integrity, to means which are suitable and proper for the development of life. These are primarily food, clothing, shelter, rest, medical care, and finally necessary service. Nigeria, we haven't become anywhere close to that. But here is the news. In 1946, the Second World War was from all wars. Okay? And after the First World War, the United Nations said, no, we have to have a league. They set up a league of nations. The idea behind the league of nations was to make sure that we create corridor of sanity in the world. Then the Second World War happened. But guess what happened? By this time, people like Yar'Adua had now come power. They set up what they call across Europe Christian Democrats as political parties. And interestingly, in 1945, the United Nations was founded. In 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a spectacular intervention in world history, in a world in which men were subjected to social classification against the backdrop of feudalism. And the world made a declaration. All of us are created in the image and likeness of God, and that human rights are inalienable. They don't depend on the goodwill of anybody. No place where somebody, governor or minister, will carry you. You are right to set it at the voice of 1948. In 1945, the British now realized, because when people realized how they were all dying in the war, and they decided to set up the National Health Service. So you can see that the social fabric of society in Europe between 1945 all the way through, people now began to take human beings seriously. We in Africa are still living in a society. It's better to be a Muslim, better to be a Christian, better to be a Yoruba man, better to be an Igbo man. We are policies of exclusion are what define access to power and opportunity. So these are the things we must try and end, and that's why I said I need to. So I want to end by finally speaking about what I call in the Catholic Catechism. Catholic Catechism talks about what is called the common destination of human goods, a universal destination. And the argument, in fact, when the Code of Canon Law was being promulgated in 1983, the Western media came up with an idea. They said that
the Catholic Church is now introducing, multiplying more sins. That was the reaction of the Western media in cynicism. But if you now go back and look at that catechism, you discover that it didn't just say that the 7th commandment says, thou shalt not steal. It explains in detail what constitutes theft, the mechanics, the mechanisms, and that finally taking is a final destination. But the processes of conception about stealing, which are based on the fact that your wife had that say, you say, yeah, man, why is it that see the car where these people don't buy? They have moved from people, they are now living in VI. We are still living here. The journey starts from there. Then they say, look at it. You graduated from Ibadan with this. Look at it. Now, this is where they've gone to. We are still sitting here. Then you now begin to feel the need. After all, not the Ministry of Finance, not the Ministry of Post here. When you work in the Ministry of Still, people were and then those who are living in the now say, look, we are still living in the we are moved to Lake Effect, so social relation is like different. So by the time you are going to persuade you, see as well this. But still is the final end. So the Catholic Church explained all of these things. But he argues that there's what we call universal destination, because everything that God has created, they are not children of a lesser God. They are not children of a lesser God. It is for the use of all of us. And like Bible said, there is enough in the world for all our needs, but there isn't enough in the world for human beings. So they challenge for me by saying, we as Catholics preach about what we call the 4 cardinal virtues. These virtues are prudence. This is the virtue that serves to inspire us to life of moderation. It calls our attention to a measured view of life. It also to contain the essence of greed and offers us the sample of what is right and what is wrong, and how to treat others. It says, there's something you say, there's something please, I'm going to have to stop my so the Christ says, just ensure that we restrain our greed and everyone is what you. Okay, I am to. So does not be those are follow up. So the how to explain I don't if I want somebody how you get them remember, what is the idea? As I was with that, be on good and all best. I would also let something. So you can find it. So they don't have to. Before I call for questions, I will make recognition for somebody who is I need to thank you. I start to allow this. I will give us all this. I'm grateful that you are because this issue. Because not all of this. I suppose to have to make us. We'd like to very quickly recognize in their beautiful attire the Catholic Women Organization of Nigeria, all the way from the Lagos Executive Province and the Lagos Institutions together.
So for young professionals like myself aspiring to become an environmental consultant, how can we nurture a faith-driven commitment to environmental stewardship while navigating industries where profits or expenses can overshadow morals and spiritual convictions? Thank you, sir.
So that will be the third question. We'll take 2 more. Come to this direction, please. We'll take 2 more, and then our guest speaker will address them. Then we call for another round. There are 2 to 3 hands here, so just make a peek.
Good afternoon, our panelists. Good afternoon, the Bishop of Sokoto and our own Archbishop of Lagos, the Director General, and everybody on the high table. I am Uzo Epejo of the Catholic Evangelizers. His Lordship, one of the things I know that you have referenced here, though you didn't mention it, is about discipline and our learning system. This issue of discipline also is part of the contributing factor. Because I know that when I was in primary school, just the cashew in my school, when it grows its fruits, nobody touches it. That was what we were taught from our teachers and even the headmaster. Touching it is a problem. Today, you find out that most of us are doing the things we are doing without learning that this is a direction and we lack the discipline. Thank you. I want you to emphasize more on this area of learning and discipline. Thank you.
Those who have been trained to be disciplined are no longer disciplined.
Thank you very much, sir. My name is Emilagba Aishat Olaomi, a CWE student in Nigerian Institute for Oceanography and Marine Research. My question is, what small but impactful action can youth start with in their community to promote environmental sustainability? Thank you, sir.
So His Excellency will now address those questions, after which we do another round.
I'm not sure, I didn't quite get the last question. Sorry, what did she say? I didn't quite, youth. Okay. Well, so maybe let me walk backwards and start from the question. I think the first thing we need to do is to understand that this is the world belongs to them, belongs to them. And begin to call attention and learn lessons from the consequences of bad behavior. I don't remember her name, but there's this young girl, I think she's probably about 12, 13 or 14, who has gone around addressing the United Nations. I don't know whether she's from some part of Europe, I don't remember them. But better somebody. So, none of us, the last thing any of us should think about is that our voices don't matter. I once wrote an article titled The Power of One. Because in Nigeria, we like to outsource our responsibilities and obligations. The young people think that it is the elders that have destroyed the country. But they themselves are participating incrementally in that destruction by the benefits that they themselves derive, either from the excesses of their parents and so on and so forth. So things like planting trees and so on, these are things you don't need to run an application, even if it is in your home. And I think that a good environmentalist will have to start from trying to sweep the family compound or the house. But many privileged children are living in environments where they have stewards. And to that extent, they don't learn to do anything. The late Michael Dukakis, his wife wrote her biography, and it was titled Now You Know. And she talked about how she came from a very, very privileged background. She talked about how when she got married, they now went for honeymoon. And the place they chose for the honeymoon was a place that they were on their own. And because of the privileged background that she came from, she was supposed to make breakfast for her husband, but she had never made breakfast for herself. The only thing she knew what to do was to boil water. And she said the husband was waiting for breakfast. Breakfast didn't come. She didn't know how to tell the man that she didn't know how to cook. So being privileged is not a license for indolence and irresponsibility. So we can do things. They begin from picking paper in front of your dormitory. They begin from picking paper on your street and all kinds of things. We never know what God will do for us. But let's not assume that this is something that others are going to do. If there is paper on the ground, you don't need to ask who it was that threw the piece of paper. And if you pick it and keep somewhere, somebody coming behind you might do the same thing. In the same way that if a can is on the road, like they say, if you kick the can down the road, the next person behind you will think it's a good thing to do. So most of what has gone bad in our society that we call corruption is an accumulation of small, small bad things that finally built up. That's why I warn people, when they tell you that if you are faced with two evils, choose a lesser one. It's a lie. Because the small evil today is going to grow. Because evil is evil. It's not the size that matters. And the size will increase with the opportunity. So the fact that your child is able to steal a pen in the class because it's in primary school
is already predisposing and showing skills for stealing bigger things when the opportunity presents itself. So all I'm saying is, let's not just say that because we are young, we are not capable of doing great things. The issue of capital exploration, I think that also speaks to the whole question of capitalism. There's been this argument, and it's not necessarily, okay, it's ideological. But it's not as if capitalism is such a bad system. All of us are, in different ways, capitalists. I used to joke with my friends who are Marxists that every Marxist is a capitalist in the waiting. It's just a question of opportunity. So, and you find that many of us, there's hardly anybody who is holding ministerial position now that wasn't doing aluta in the university, hoping that things will change. Now they've found a seat at the table, and aluta is no longer. So it's not enough to say that all capitalists are just going around and destroying the world. No. I remember that during my work in Ogoni land, the Ogonis and other communities were pretty clear about the oil companies that were doing bad things. There were other companies that they managed to set aside and said they were doing good things. Chevron was one of them. So I'm saying that it's not as if all capitalism does is just to do bad things. Because the reason why communism fell was that it had the assumption that the state had the capacity to manage resources on behalf of the citizens. And it also led to indolence. And this is why you find, unfortunately for us, in a place like many parts of northern Nigeria, very wrong teaching about what God's intentions and will are has been infused to people. If you come, the beggars in northern Nigeria will probably not say to you, please, give me money. The beggar says, Allah eba kakabani. That is, may God give you so that you will give me. Meaning that the only thing that is bad is the man who doesn't give him. But he has no incentive to do anything for himself because he says, Allah eba kakabani. Let God give you so that you will give me. So I think the important thing is to have a conversation such as this and to pick some of the good things that capitalism is doing and can continue to do. It is the lack of moral guardrails to call people to order. Because what we call corruption in Nigeria is happening everywhere. The only thing is that you cannot get away with it. And that is why I say to people, rather than focusing on whether you call it Islamic extremism or religious extremism, it's not, why people kill may not be as important as the act of killing itself. And the way to end the killing is to start a process of trying and prosecuting and putting people away or giving them the sentences they deserve. So whether somebody kills you because he believes that his religion told him to do so, he must be told that we are not living in a theocracy and he doesn't have that right. But we are in a country where you can kill another person on grounds that he is accused of blasphemy. Well, God didn't tell me that you are the one in charge of his will, enforcing his will. And even if the man says so, the president, the governor is the one that has the right to say, we are not operating under the Bible, we are not operating under the Quran, we are operating under a law. And by that law, this is what, we are not trying you because you are a Muslim. We are not trying you because we are a Christian. We are trying you because you're falling foul of the law. I said to people, it sounds radical, but it isn't. There is no law in Nigeria against killing a bishop. There is no law against killing a governor or killing a president. There is no law against, whether you are a cripple. There is no law against burning a house, whether it's a hotel. No law. But there is a law against arson. Whether what you burnt is a house or a hamlet, you should be tried by that law. Whether the person you kill is a cripple, a beggar, you should be tried by that law. But in Nigeria, we focus on the fact of religion, and this is why criminals get away, because they pretend they are defending their religion. So I think the important thing is a conversation like this, and to identify and encourage the multinational corporations to also realize that, as economists will say, we need incentive compatibility. That is, you create incentives that are compatible with the needs of the community. So when you go around helping communities, education, health, scholarship, and so on, you are reducing, but you are also making people happy to be related and associated with you. I like the second question about bells and about noise pollution. Again, like I've said, noise pollution doesn't say playing the music of Davido is penalized, but playing the music of Miles is not. It doesn't say that dancing for a birthday and dancing for a funeral are different. It says noise. Whether that noise is holy noise, it doesn't matter. The challenge for us, and I think Governor Raji Fashola dealt with these issues in Lagos here. I have a priest, I don't remember, but it's a long, when I was in the Catholic Secretariat, he told me that he was living somewhere, is it Shomola? I don't remember the place, but he said the mosque in front of him used to start calling for prayer. So what he did was, he said he went and bought a big public address system. His mass was 6 a.m. Once they start the call for prayer, he will turn on his music 1 minute before the muezzin goes to call for prayer. So by the time the man tries to call for prayer, he is playing Tchaikovsky, although he is sleeping. But his intention is to drown the noise of the man at the mosque. He said the next day, the man came and knocked on his door. He said, Father, why you are music? People cannot hear my call to prayer. He said, oh, your call for prayer is waking people at the time they don't want to wake up. So it's a question of, and you know, this was before technology. This was before technology. And for me, I remain against noise pollution because no Muslim in Nigeria, no Christian in Nigeria requires the call to prayer. Because if you, religion is in the heart. And you cannot tell me that in Abuja or in Lagos, these phones, they have, you can wake, I have some of my Muslim friends, the application is there. If it's time for prayer, it will start ringing to tell you to go and pray. Must we make everybody in the area wake up from sleep because we are going to pray? Because I think the call to prayer says, wake up, it is better to pray than to sleep. Well, I have legitimate right to say, I prefer to sleep. I will pray for now. I want to sleep. I will pray later. I have that right. That you want to pray doesn't mean I must also pray at that time. So for me, and it comes down to two things. People blocking roads. It happens in Abuja. It happens everywhere. If you go to Saudi Arabia, do you see this chaos and this irresponsibility? If you go to London, can you do this? You can't do it because societies are organized, but simple things that you can criminalize, and they've been criminalized in the codes. You can't touch them because they are religion. So if you say that nobody is allowed to raise the volume of noise, and the laws are there, whether you are calling for prayer or whether you are dancing in the night, because the reason why law works for all of us is that what will stop you from doing, if you are happy that you got promoted and you want to dance through the night, well, there has to be restraint because tomorrow it may be my turn. So really for me it's a question of enforcement. Whether you are blocking the road for prayer, there are procedures. The police know those procedures. If you want to do procession, for example, in Sokoto, we are allowed, we have a procession to mark the feast of Christ the King. You don't have to be a Catholic to know about it here in Lagos. Everybody knows it. When I became Bishop of Sokoto, I told my priest, we'll do procession. And they said, no, how can we do procession? Nobody has ever done procession in Sokoto. I said, we'll do procession because this is what the bishops have instructed and the Catholic world has instructed. And they say, it's not possible. I say, I know what to do. We write to the police and let them say no. And when we wrote to the police commissioner, he was himself a Muslim. The police commissioner said, every policeman in Nigeria knows about Corpus Christi. They may not pronounce it, but they know about it. So go ahead with your procession. And we had it in Sokoto. So what I'm saying is that simple things like this become religious. If you block road, whether it's for funeral or whether it's for prayer, it is not acceptable. Unless the government gives you that permission temporary for a period of time, but it cannot become permanent. Because all these people blocking road, it has become So people now move around. You say, let's try and do this before they start the call. So for me, simply, it's a question of discipline, nothing to do with religion. And then the question of the man from Lasso, I think the essence of what you are talking about is funding education. I'm happy part of the paper here says there is research grants by Chevron, award of S.L. Edu, PhD research grants. Compete if you believe you qualify. But also the federal government has come up with the whole idea of NEL fund. I don't know the details about it, but I think there are opportunities now that are opening up for people to struggle to be able to get a good education. And the lady talking about what to do as a young, okay, well, consultant, yes, but at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money. You know, one day I was in a taxi in New York, and we got to a bit of traffic. And somebody was going around, obviously an immigrant, a long time ago, was selling flowers. And the taxi driver looked at me and said, man, this is just a heck of a country. This is the only country in the world you can sell anything as long as it is legal. So for me, you don't have to wait. You may dream of being a consultant. But if you want to be a consultant, start now. And it depends on the good things that you are doing and the goodwill that you are generating within your community. So I think don't wait until you become a consultant, because the place in Nigeria, you really don't need to look for material for consultancy, because everywhere you turn, the material is there, especially concerning environment. I remember there was a man here, permit the expression, sorry, but I was in the Catholic Secretariat then, who came from America and started a business. And the vehicle used to pass in front of the Catholic Secretariat. It had a big inscription, shit business is good business. I'm sure some of you still remember. So there's a lot of work, a lot of opportunities for us. The problem is to design mechanism for solving our problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my Lord Bishop. So we go for another round of questions, and this will be the final round. Allow me to just quickly acknowledge the Catholic Television of Nigeria, CTV Abuja. They are transmitting this event on GoTV and YouTube free of charge to support the Nigerian Conservation Foundation. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Father. We appreciate you. So, next question. Would like for more questions from the back. Let what happens in the classroom not happen here, where the intelligent ones are always in the front, and those are not intelligent, but they provide harmony for the class, they sit behind. Please go ahead.
All right, panelists and everyone, good afternoon. My name is Oluwa Kayode. I'm a broadcaster with Lagos Talks 91.3 FM. I'm actually excited to be here. I'm a staunch follower of Bishop Kuka, and I just want to advise, sir, please, whatever you do, don't go into politics, because you might make me resign to just follow you and campaign for free. So, but I just started to throw that in. Thank you so much for all you do. I have one question, even riding on one thing that you said right now. You spoke about our leaders, how they're activists when they're in their early years, they get into office and they lose it. And it got me thinking, I didn't want to ask the question before until you said that could the state of our environment be affecting our leaders? The pollution and the cacophony of noise, the fact that we have fewer trees that are emitting less oxygen, maybe they don't have enough oxygen. Could that really in any way be affecting our leaders? Thank you.
Please hold on. We have some person sending questions online, and I'm permitted to just quickly read from one of the questions. It says, please open it again. Oh, go ahead while I search this out. Go ahead. Okay. Ask your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Tosin, a student of NUMA, that's the Nigerian Institute of Oceanography and Marine. So I have two questions. Permit me to read my book. From a conservation perspective, how can faith-based advocacy influence better protection of aquaculture ecosystems, especially rivers, wetlands, and coastal environments that directly support fisheries and food security? So, my second question is, how can young people, especially we students, practically translate faith-based environmental values into everyday actions that make measurable impacts beyond just awareness and sermon? Thank you.
Thank you. I have some questions here. So I read, the first one says, how do we equip our children through formal education with the knowledge of saving the environment? In bracket, because I feel the knowledge about sustainable development goals, SDGs, should be incorporated into the curriculum from the basic through primary stage. That's question 1. 2, what measures can the government or concerned authorities and agencies take to encourage environmental sustainability, especially in the rural areas? And the third and final one says, what can someone do to let his or her voice be heard pertaining environmental issues of concern in their area or immediate environment? Your Excellencies, I think we have 5 questions already. Or we take 2. It seems there's no network in the middle row. Oh, you on? Okay, please take the mic to them.
I already have the mic.
I can see some hands there. Okay, you already have the mic. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ajia Ganiato Moumi Babalola, the National Women Affairs Secretary for NASFAT. I want to sincerely appreciate Nigerian Conservation Foundation for extending the invitation to NASFAT. We appreciate it a lot. And I want to appreciate our father, the Reverend, for that insightful lecture. Every minute I've spent here is actually very, very valuable to me. And we pray that God Almighty will give us the will to make use of all that we have listened to here. Amen. I actually have a request. I searched online, I realized that this program, you have it on various days. May I request that maybe going forward, we should avoid putting it on Friday, because at 2, or even before then, Muslims will want to go for Friday prayer. Friday prayer, Jumat prayer, comes only once in a week. And it's actually very compulsory for men and obligatory for women as well. So I want to appeal that going forward, maybe we should avoid fixing these programs on Friday. Thank you very much for the honor.
Thank you. It's rather unfortunate we started quite late, and that wouldn't, if we had started as scheduled, would not have affected the time for prayer. But NCF will put your points to note and give it a consideration. Next question, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Farah, and I'm a student of Nigerian Institute of Journalism. And I would like to thank the Nigerian Conservation Foundation for inviting us to this program. So my first question is, how can Nigerian youth support the Nigerian Conservation Foundation in promoting integral ecology and sustainable development?
If you see any student on uniform who wants to ask a question, please oblige.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Happiness from Nigerian Institute of Journalism. My question is, as Nigeria today is facing urgent environmental concerns from climate changes to plastic pollutions and flood, in your view, sir, how do you advise the NCS to tackling these issues, imagine the challenges we are facing? And also, what is your opinion to the upcoming generations, the present one and the future ones, on ways they can manage this pollution waste? Thank you.
I think NCF has started that already by not using a PET bottle here. So take 2 from that where you are, 2 more questions, and then we have His Excellency address them.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oyebamichi Oluwatimleyin. I'm a student of University of Lagos. So I just want to ask a question. So, despite seminars, enforcement, I realize that pollution increases every day. Does that mean there's no practical solution to it? Thank you.
It appears we talk too much with little action. Next person.
Okay, good afternoon, sirs. I'm Michael from the University of Lagos. I want to ask this question. What are the ethical and practical considerations for responding to incidents of human injury or attack by wildlife in conservation settings, and under what circumstances might immediate retaliation against the animals be justified?
Please bring the mic to the front where we have the students on uniform. I think one or two of them would like to ask.
Good day, everyone. My name is Ati Ezra, a bona fide student of Barra Community Senior Secondary School.
Please, my brother, calm down. Take it easy. Let's hear you very well. Okay.
And my question goes like this. As a student who is in secondary school, how can we foster and encourage environmental sustainability in our schools and community at large? Thank you.
That's a student, not housemaster.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Oma Inisi. I'm from the respected school of Rodan High School, Badori. I want to ask a question related to this. How can we balance economic growth with environmental sustainability in Nigeria, especially with the increasing demand for natural resources and infrastructure development? Thank you.
All right, so we'll leave it at that. His Excellency will now address the questions.
Well, again, I start with the last question. In the Catholic Church, we take very seriously the whole question of restitution. And restitution arises from a conscious awareness of a wrong you've done to somebody else, the consequences of that, and then steps to be taken to restore wholeness. So I think the real question for us about managing the environment, there isn't only one question. It is to progress the fact that we have made terrible mistakes. There are so many things that the other nations no longer accept, which we laugh at. For example, as a student, I know we used to, in England, we were shocked to see the way, let me use the word, white people were treating their pets. Up till today, there are people who are leaving their wheels, putting their pets in their wheels and so on. These things, we look at them with shock. That somebody is giving an animal a bath, that somebody is doing, so given where we have come from, our consciousness is more or less rising every day. And along with that will come responsibility. So critical to this whole question of environment, after all, when all these oil companies came, we saw their drilling machines. Many communities were very excited because, quote unquote, development was coming. We are told that oil was found in commercial quantities in a place called Oloibiri. I have been to Oloibiri, I've been to that well, I've taken photographs, they are on my phone. But then I'm reading a new book now which actually says no, oil was actually found in 1908. But the point I'm making is that in the Niger Delta, we cannot correlate the environmental despoliation with the economic conditions around which people are living. So one way going forward, unfortunately, the government has a way of responding to these issues. So we have some big boys now who under the amnesty program are supposed to be guarding our pipelines in exchange for humongous money. Even when technology is available, this complicity simply reinforces the tragedy around our environment. So the challenge for us is to have the moral conscience of coming to terms with restitution. I mean, when I was working in Ogoniland, There were farmers who, on hearing the work of UNEP, the words were interpreted in vernacular and they gave people a different notion. There were people who were actually, they will go and fetch fuel and come and spray around their farm. That was when we started my work in Ogoniland. And especially when they saw me with white people, they thought that we will just come and look at this, and this is what constitutes oil spillage. It didn't turn out to be so. So for me, it's a question of education, a change of orientation, a change of values. There are so many things that require changes in our society, especially in Africa. You may have a wife who is a political scientist. You come for a meeting in your house. The husband is probably just doing some basic job, but he's a businessman, so-called. But the wife is a professor. If you're having a conversation and your wife makes a contribution, your friends will go away saying, which kind of a man is this? Men are talking and his wife to put mouth. There is a way we feel about young people. They say elders are talking and young children are talking. All of this, we have to come to terms with how the society is evolving. Now, the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals emerged in Europe and America and other places. People who have been to America, you know that for you to take a stone, to stone a squirrel in America, you go to prison. So there are things we are doing here. They are not a measure of how the environment needs to be. There isn't enough consciousness among our people. That's why, like I said, we believe that bushmeat is bushmeat. Now, what is the problem? Then the issue about the lack of action and how things are remaining the same. Well, the reason why things will remain the same is that we are substituting moral exhortation for law. The reason why law exists, even the Bible says law is for lawbreakers. It is that too many people are allowed to do so many bad things over time, and after some time, those things become embedded in our culture. So that is why, the person who raised the question, we don't have to wait until we become elders. In Singapore, for example, there is a cultural syllabus at a particular age, and the Singaporean educational system is such that at the age of 5, there is what every child must know. At the age of 8, there's what every child must know. And as children are going and going, by the time you turn 17 in Singapore, you're ready to enter university, you must know what it takes to be Prime Minister of Singapore. So we don't need to wait. If your children are helping you to water your plants, something is growing in their mind. If your children are helping you, how they look after the pets in the family, you are giving them a bit of education. So we don't have to wait. These things hopefully can be embedded, and I think it's a campaign that this organization can wage to get environmental education into the syllabus. The issue of pollution and waste, these are the issues of law enforcement, because the laws are there. The laws are there. Everywhere we know that when we travel to other countries, we can't get away with all these things. And the environment is such that it doesn't encourage you. You cannot be walking on the streets of London or New York, any of these places, and simply throw away paper. Something will happen. But in Nigeria, when you throw away paper, you are not doing anything wrong, because paper is sitting on paper that is sitting on paper that has been sitting there anyway. So it's about orientation, but it's also about, it's not something that government will do. Many streets that I see in Lagos have agreed that they are making security arrangements. You cannot drive into many streets now without meeting a bar. If that is the case, when the members of this estate, when they gather, what do they talk about? It's not about collecting money for us to buy transformer. It's not about collecting money for us to protect ourselves. There should also be concern about how do we keep the road that is leading to our house, how do we keep it clean? Because once that happens, somebody will say, if you are looking for the house of Mr. Jackson, you come to one place where the road is very clean, you know that is where Mr. Jackson is living. So, but we don't need to wait or outsource this responsibility to other people. How can the young people help? I've already made the point. Now, NASFAT, I like your organization, and I'm associated with them, but I take a bit of exception to this whole question that is becoming prevalent in Nigeria. Things that are about our faith. Faith is private. Faith is personal.
That is why the Second Amendment of the American Constitution, is it the first or second, was this thing about freedom of religion. Freedom of religion it includes freedom. Even our Constitution has adopted that in chapter 2. You are free. I'm free to be. I used to joke with the Sultan. I said, if I were born in Sokoto, my name would have been Abdullahi. If you were born in Southern Kaduna, your name would have been James or Thomas. There's nothing cast in stone. But how do you effectively ensure that your religious preferences don't impose or don't stop traffic? Because if we start saying, and I see it happening in Abuja all the time, you have an event, they said at 2 o'clock, we have to stop because Muslims have to go to pray. I have been at meetings in which Muslims, Sadona used to say to walk is to pray. But if you want to go and pray, please, by God, people should be allowed to go and pray. Nobody should hold you because it's time for prayer. But you can pray and come back. It's not a reason for us to say we can no longer have events at 2 o'clock. Before you know what is happening, the Hindus will tell you, we don't want prayer at 12 o'clock because that's the time where some other group will tell you we don't, and then you have confusion. So for me, we must respect the boundaries as opposed to literally forcing our preferences on others. So for me, if there is an event and it's at 2 p.m., and I'm a Muslim and I don't want to go for the event, I prefer to go and pray. By God, there's nothing wrong with that. But it shouldn't be that we can, because this is how we started things incrementally in Nigeria. Now they've become so big, we can no longer confront them. Because there are Muslims in Senegal. Islam in Senegal is about 96%. Islam in Gambia is about 96 or 95%. But you don't hear any of these things when you travel to Niger, that is across the border with us in Sokoto. You don't hear any of these things. And people are doing their best. It's time for prayer, you go and pray, you come back. In Nigeria here, people want to make it something that is not. Religion is of the heart. So I would rather that if there is an event taking place, if you are a Muslim and you are organizing the event, you want to have it at 4 o'clock, those who want to come will come. You want to organize it, but to say that events should no longer be organized at 2 o'clock because before you know what is happening, there will be confusion. That's my personal view. On the issue of what to do with rural areas, again, as you know, our ancestors, in their own way, were preserving the environment, they reverence the environment. And this is what Pope Francis was trying to illustrate by the Indians from the Andes coming and saying, during our celebration, Pachamama is very important to us because she is the goddess of fertility. She's the goddess. I mean, Pope Francis knew that this is not a goddess. If this is what these people mean by honoring this, many of you, I'm sorry, if you have read Bolaji Idou's, and I think Archbishop, those of us who went to the seminary, we read a very famous book written by Bolaji Idou about African traditional religion. And one thing I see is he tells the story of a white man and an Indian. Their wives were buried in the same graveyard, side by side. The Indian used to go there, is it Indian or Chinese, used to go there on the wife's anniversary. And it turned out the anniversaries were the same day. He will go there with a bowl of rice. And he will pray and then start incantation and then spread the rice around the wife's grave. And then the white man will go there with a fresh bouquet of flowers, pray, and then put the flowers around his wife's grave. So one day the white man looked at this child. He said, why are you wasting rice, throwing this rice? Your wife is already, do you think she's going to wake up to eat the rice? The Indian man looked and said, when your wife wakes up to smell your flowers, she will find my wife eating her rice. So, I mean, things we don't understand, we tend to condemn. And I think all that is required is respect. Our people are the way of reverencing the earth. Okay? In our communities, people didn't cross the river just like that. In many communities, people didn't put their hoe on the farm just like that. So we can harvest a lot of this and incorporate them into environmental curriculum. Faith. Well, this person was talking about faith and the environment and the environmental despolation. If you live in Oguta,
He lived in many parts of the Niger Delta. Again, Justice Oputa used to say he came from Oguta. He said in those days, we'll just go and catch fish with our hands. If you are from the Niger Delta, from many parts of Ogoni land, the complaint is that the fish have all been poisoned, we can no longer fish. And this is as a result of the excesses of yesterday. We didn't have that consciousness. But now that we have it, some of these things can be averted. Again, it's a question of making the law and enforcing the law. Because there are all kinds of laws that we already have, but they are hardly enforced. And finally, the gentleman from the FM, I assume that you are not going to be, you won't attend my inauguration, which is okay. You have already canceled yourself out. So I'm not going to invite you for my inauguration. To answer your question, people, Nigerians like to say something is wrong with our leaders. It is not that something is wrong with them. Because they are part of us. They grew up among us. The question I ask myself is, that you became president or governor or minister after coming from Shomolo or coming from Ajegunle, what is it that is new that a Nigerian president doesn't know? Is it the lack of electricity? Is it the lack of water? Is it the poverty? But to speak to those things is to make a mistake that all of us make. Fundamentally, that about leadership, we tend to focus on the president, focus on the governor, forgetting that leadership is not, there are people that are in office, but there are also people that are in power. I read a book many years ago. The title of the book is Africa Works. And what the man was explaining is that Africa works, but Africa works differently. Because if you have a community where there is no water, and every effort to bring water to that community has failed, it is because there may be a big man who is selling water, who has tankers, who is bribing the local government chairman to make sure that you don't get water. So you are not getting water, but somebody is benefiting. We all know that our roads got broken because somehow there was an understanding between tanker drivers and people doing haulage who decided that the roads were more important than the railway lines. We've ended up in this confusion. So rather than focusing on the leaders, we should also focus on the bureaucracy. That's why the British left us. I'm sorry Philip Aswedu is not here. Baba Philip Aswedu is not here. But people like him understood that from the British, that the conveyor belt for government's intention is the bureaucracy. One world leader from the third world who understood this perfectly well was Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew understood that without the bureaucracy, nothing can work. And that is why at the beginning, came to power in 1969, remained in power for almost 40 years, conducted elections, won elections. But he elevated the civil service to a position of envy and paid them. His civil servants in Singapore were earning the highest salary anywhere in the world. Okay. And the average person who wanted, if you want to be, let's say a position is available in the ministry of whatever, a permanent secretary position, it will be advertised. People will apply. And once he kept the civil service in that way, you read the story last year. For the first time in the history of Singapore, a public servant was brought to trial because it was said that, not that he stole, was it $100,000 or $200,000, which is just amount of money that a Nigerian minister can use to buy trinkets in Harrods or that chicken feed. But for the people of Singapore, a lot of money. And the man didn't steal the money, is that he was overseeing some sport event they were going to have. And little gifts that were given to him. He was the first minister to be brought to trial, only last year. This is a democracy that started in 1969. So for me, the quality of governance is not necessarily tied to presidents and governors. They may have the best of intentions. But if you do not have a civil service that functions and delivers and is patriotic, no matter how much you put in the system, and that is where we are now in Nigeria, everything you put in the system gets consumed by the civil service that is severely compromised. So I thank you very much, but just to say again, it's not whether the air the leaders breathe, there's anything wrong with it. we breathe the same air. It's a question of enforcement. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Your Excellency, His Lordship Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka, the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. So we've heard it, and I bet we all have one or two messages to take home, and not only to take home, to imbibe in ourselves, for it begins with you, it begins with me. And so, without wasting much more of your time, we intend to leave here within the space of 15 to 20 minutes, so you bear with us as we expedite the rest of the program. We shall have a quick message, but very important, message from Chevron Nigeria Limited. And I so invite to the podium the representative of the Chevron MD, and she's equally NCF NEC member. Please welcome Mrs. Ebisa Akisanya.
Thank you. Most Reverend Matthew Hassan Kuka, our special guest, Reverend Adewale Martins, Chairman NEC, members of NEC Council here present, the members of S.L. Edu family, special guests, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm reading this speech on behalf of our MD, Jim Swart. I'm delighted to be part of the 24th edition of the annual Chief S.L. Edu Memorial Lecture. On behalf of Chevron Nigeria Limited, I thank you all for finding the time from your busy schedules to attend this event, which has re-energized us individually and collectively to work towards the conservation of the environment. Significantly, it is worthy to note that Chief Edu's vision for establishing the Nigerian Conservation Foundation has continued to flourish long after his death. I commend the President and members of the Board of Trustees, management, and staff of NCF for sustaining this vision and making the NCF a stronger institution and a foremost authority in nature conservation in Nigeria and beyond. We are glad to be associated with this enduring vision. The theme for this year's S.L. Edu Memorial Lecture, to have and to hold, faith and care of the environment, could not be more timely or relevant. It reminds us that stewardship of the environment is both a responsibility and an act of faith, one that calls for intention, integrity, and collective action. At Chevron, we fully embrace this responsibility. We recognize the value of advancing a lower carbon future and continue to invest in actions that reduce the carbon intensity of our operations while expanding our portfolio of lower carbon businesses. Chevron is a signatory to the Paris Agreement as evidence of our commitment towards advancing the global net zero ambitions outlined in the agreement. Chevron invests in its operations to improve environmental performance while developing new innovative technology and best practices through key projects in energy efficiency, flare reductions, venting and fugitive reductions, renewables, and carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Chevron's vision to be the global energy company most admired for its people, partnership, and performance. In line with our vision, we have maintained a mutually beneficial partnership with the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, which has produced commendable projects geared towards conserving our environment and building Nigeria's economy. One of the projects is the Lekki Conservation Center, built with funds provided by Chevron Corporation in 1992 as a reserved sanctuary for rich flora and fauna for the Lekki Peninsula. Today, the LCC has become one of Africa's most prominent and most diverse urban parks. It attracts tourists from all over the world. The LCC is also known as a safe habitat for several species of plants and animals going extinct and has attracted several educational researchers. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to support the annual Chief S.L. Edu Memorial Lecture and sponsor a research grant scheme in memory of Chief S.L. Edu. We believe that to sustain our environment, there's a need for continuous research to garner new and better ways to preserve nature. In this regard, since 2006, through the S.L. Edu Research Grant and in partnership with the NCF, CNL has continued to award scholarships to doctoral candidates whose research works are on environmental conservation and sustainable development in Nigeria. About 40 PhD students have benefited from the grant since its inception. I would like to congratulate our two awardees of today, even as we look forward to their contributions to the body of knowledge in the nature conservation space. I would also urge everyone to make a personal commitment to preserve our environment. As we navigate this complex landscape and work together to create a more sustainable future for all, let us prioritize environmental integrity and equitable solutions to keep global climate goals within reach. I believe that with the right sensitization and advocacy, we can collectively protect our Earth. I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you so very much, Chevron, for all you do. Chevron has done quite a lot. The only person Chevron has not helped is me. A quick one. So we do the award of Chief S.L. PhD Research Grants, and I invite the DG to take it from here.
Thank you very much, MC, and thank you very much, Chevron. After a very rigorous exercise of over 130 entries, we have two PhD candidates who emerged as winners of this grant, and I will kindly request the presence of your most Reverend Dr. Alfred for the presentation, and we're supported by the speaker as well, so that we'll be able, and my chairman, so that we'll be able to present this. The first is Ezekiel Temitayo Adedeji. Please put your hands together for him as sponsors for this award. Please give it to him. Oh, sorry. Yes. And the second person is Ariko Okoye Eteng. Ariko Okoye Eteng.
So Ariko and Ezekiel have just been granted a grant. So to one of the questions that brothers, what can NCF do? This, I think, also answers or provides that question.
Our guest speaker, sir. Please, can we have you for... Okay.
The presentation of plaque to our guest speaker.
In the middle. Thank you very much, sir. So you'll agree with me that we've had a very, very fruitful, inspiring, interesting, and knowledge increasing session. Can we give him a round of applause again, please? We have been very, very privileged today to have as our guest speaker the Most Reverend Dr. Matthew Hassan Kuka, Bishop of Sokoto Catholic Diocese. And on behalf of the Nigerian Conservation, thank you very much again, sir. God bless you, sir. Thank you. Should I help you carry it? Thank you.
Is that all, yes. All right. Yes. What is next? Is a vote of thanks, but before that, as promised earlier, permit me to just quickly acknowledge the presence of the following institutions here today. We have representatives from the following. I will just do a one-off call, and as I call you, please applaud them. We have representatives from the Department of Integrated Science Education, Lagos State University of Education, Biology Department, Lagos State University of Education, Center for Environmental Studies and Sustainable Development, Lagos State University, Department of Urban and Regional Planning, University of Lagos, Department of Geoscience, University of Lagos, Nigerian Institute for Oceanography and Marine Research. We have people from Salvation Army, you're welcome. Nigerian Institute of Journalism, NIJ, Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Lagos State, University of Science and Technology, Zoology Department, University of Lagos, Lagos Anglican Girls Grammar School, Barra Community School, Falomos Senior High School, Rodan High School. If your name is not mentioned, you are not from a high school. We have Watercress College. You're very much welcome. We appreciate you. We thank you. And this is not a vote of thanks, but something we have to do to appreciate ourselves. May I please have you place one finger on the other palm? Place one finger on the other palm. Now hit it. Make it 2 fingers. Make it 3 fingers. Make it 4. And in making it 5, you're clapping for yourselves. Appreciate yourselves for making it a date with NCF today at the auspicious 24th Chief S.L. Edu Memorial Lecture. With your presence, we have recorded success. Thank you, Chevron. And to do the official vote of thanks, and I invite to thank us all on behalf of the Edu's family. Please welcome with me Mr. Sheni Edu. That's the advantage of height.
Thank you, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Chevron Nigeria Limited. Thanks for the continued support. You make it possible, and we thank you for this. The Most Reverend Dr. Alfred Adewale Martins, Archbishop and Metropolitan of the Catholic Archdiocese of Lagos. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. Our speaker, the Most Reverend Dr. Matthew Hassan Kuka, Bishop of Sokoto. We very much enjoyed your lecture. It was very insightful, enthusiastic, and I think it resonated with everybody. And it was also very moving. So I hope that we all took something from it and learned, and thank you. the Executive Council of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, various members of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, various representatives of federal governments and state institutions. I know there are many, so I'll just thank you all. Various educational institutions and students, distinguished members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and friends of the earth. We thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come and be with us for this 24th lecture. We wish you a safe journey home, and we hope to see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sheni. I like the way he spoke. I like that very, very eminent and distinguished personalities here. But allow me to celebrate my mommy here, not biological, but adopted, the Right Honorable Dame Marie Fatai Williams. Please put your hands together for her. I celebrate you, ma'am. Thank you so very much. If you were one of the early comers, you'd have watched the documentary that played on the screen. You hear those diction, those words. That's mommy's voice. And hear the way Uncle Sheni just spoke. Is this how rich people speak? When you want to know, hold on, don't play it. When you want to know the status of who is speaking, when you hear actually, it is a poor man that starts with actually. Quick one, we have a podcast that I would like to let out to you all. Also, a bit of it was aired on the screen. It goes Niger Echo Vibes podcast. So within a minute, I'd just like you to bring out your phone, scan this QR code you see on the screen, and then subscribe. This lets you into knowing quite a lot about what NTF does through this platform, Niger Echo Vibes podcast. Now there's a little giveaway we'd like to do. The first 5 subscribers to comment on the previous episode that has just been released or uploaded, we have something for you, a customized souvenir. It's not here, but upon being selected, we will contact you and have you get your own share of the souvenir. So please scan through it and then subscribe, and of course you'll be glad you did. There will also, to all the media men here, there will be interviews conducted on the green carpet outside the hall. Please ensure that is done before you take your leave. So on that note, I will call for photographs now of our very distinguished members of the top table. Please, paparazzis, take your spot as we take a group photograph with our guest speaker, as well as our special guest of honor, and of course, members of the table. And after which we shall take the national anthem, which officially brings to an end this year's edition. So, Your Excellencies, please take your spot. Okay. Channels, don't forget your mic. Members of council, please come forward. Members of council, National Executive Council of NCF.
Keep us together.
Don't go yet unless you sing the national anthem, please. All right, shall we all rise for the national anthem? Please, let's be in the mood. It is time for the national anthem. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you all at the 25th Chief S.L. Edu Memorial Lecture. I remain my humble self, MC Smart, the sensational comedian of the Federal Republic. See you all some other time. God bless you. Happy networking and enjoy the rest of your day. Media interview, please. Let's proceed to the green carpet.